I was thinking that when we were talking about impact, that for so much of my life, impact was so unconscious for me. And I am going to talk about prioritizing, but in terms of what we're doing here today. And I've been a single parent since my youngest child was nappies, 6 months old. I remember carrying nappies, so probably about 6 months old, and she's now 16, so a really, really long time. And I always remember, because, you know, none of us really wakes up thinking, I'm so special. You kind of wake up thinking, I'm fat, my butt, my hair, my this. Do you know what I mean? You don't really wake up. Very few of us wake up thinking, wow. And I absolutely did spend, you know, a very, very long time in my adult life just thinking, wow, you know, it's amazing how well I've screwed up and how much further I can take this. And I was driving my youngest, my middle child, who was, I think, probably 2.5, to nursery school. And we were chugging along, going down this road in London, and there was a man on a bicycle just cycling along. And so my daughter goes, Mama, what's that daddy doing? And I said, I don't know, sweetie, I guess he's going to work. And my daughter went, Daddy's work? She was utterly gobsmacked at the entire concept that men worked, which says an awful lot about all sorts of things, including her father. But that is what it is. But I remember just thinking that so just a little bit about me. And I don't want to bore anybody who's ever read anything about me, but I come from a very, very traditional Indian upbringing. We were brought up in an upper-class, wealthy family, and that meant that I was jailed in expectation and lack of acknowledgement and lack of choice and lack of freedom. And my box was this big. And that was what I was meant to do. I was meant to go out, get educated. And I speak very freely about this all the time and have done for decades, because I think it's really important to talk about these things. And my job was to look pretty. My mother wasn't convinced that was really a possibility. So what we were going to do was just get really educated and marry well, you know, and know how to have a dinner party anywhere in the world at one day's notice for 100 people. I can do that to this day, let me tell you. Don't think I'm unskilled. And so I went and I became a corporate lawyer, master's in international finance, went on and worked in private equity, telecoms, and sort of got married, got unmarried, got married again. And I just was like really crap at the married bit. I was just like, can I stop now? I really don't seem to be doing this very well. My first child was very, very ill. He spent around 280 days of his first year in hospital. And my life changed completely, because the thing about being good is you're only going to be good if there's a payoff, right? That's what you're told. Be good and then it'll be like this. And I was like, this cannot be the bloody payoff for being good. This sucks. He had cardiorespiratory arrest. He was resuscitated. He was intensive care. It was just awful. And I remember my mother going, darling, awfully sorry. We just can't make it out to see him, because I was brought up in Malawi. And she was like, we're struggling a little bit and the flights are really expensive. So you'll be fine. I'm sure he'll come out of intensive care soon. And I remember thinking, no shit. Is that really the payoff for not doing it the right way? Because my child being sick had to be my fault in some way. And I was just like, wow. And I remember then the CRUK started, and then it just carried on. So in very short succession, from 2004, when I walked out on my daughter's father, I have 3 children, and we had a we had built this huge company. We were extremely wealthy, and we built it together. My mother says I'm too stupid to marry money, so you know we built it together, and we're actually very good friends. So just because I understand, we've made good friends since, and we had this incredible lifestyle and the shittiest marriage ever. And I got up with the 3 kids and walked out and thought, I'm never doing this again. And I don't care how many Ferraris there are on the front lawn, which she really was pissed off about. She'd at least take a Ferrari with you, and we left. And so in the next, I'm trying to think, the next 5-7 years, I literally fell off the face of the earth. In quick succession, my ex-husband emptied all the bank accounts, bankrupted me, made me homeless. Moved into a girlfriend's house, and she had one bedroom for us. And I slept on her floor, and my children slept on the bed for 6-7 months. And I had to start again with nothing. And it's a really interesting experience to have grown up extremely wealthy, to have made a lot of money, and to be supremely educated, because you're kind of like, wasn't this what I was meant to do? Where's the good girl shit gone? The good girl got up and gone. And so I had to really rethink the experience of what and who I was. And I always say that I'm extremely lucky because I know exactly who I am. The joy of such trauma is that you and it's very interesting because you kind of, you have to remember I started by saying I had the ability to marry very well because I was skilled at that. It took everything within me to not marry well again because it's so much easier. And we know we don't talk about these things, and I think it's really important to talk about it. I chose not to do that because I thought I can't afford it because I won't know who I am again. I'll disappear into that whole system of what this is. So I chose to stay single. I chose to be a single parent. I chose to make my own money. I chose to look after my children. I chose to go into Christmas 2006 with £200 for 4 weeks to bring up 3 kids with. Not an unknown circumstance for much of the country, really, but it was interesting. I mean, I have to say, it was very interesting. And I've been extremely rich and extremely poor, and I have to tell you, I highly recommend rich. Poor sucks. Just in case anybody wondered, in case you wondered. And what happens when you have nothing and you are no one? Because when you have nothing, you are no one. Because poverty sort of becomes contagious, a bit like an illness. But when you have nothing and you are no one, you learn who you are. You learn what you'll do for money. You learn what you'll do for attention. And you learn what you will not do. And I know exactly what I will and I won't do at all times. It's really interesting to know that every single day about who I am. It gives you an enormous amount of freedom. Leads to a lot of swearing too. Sorry, not past, just really bad-mouthed. And I have learned that the thing that has enabled me to succeed, because today I am a success. I am a powerful woman who is successful. And that is in itself a unique phrase for a majority of women. It is a very unique phrase to be said with great softness and gentleness and joy. And it is something I'm deeply, deeply comfortable with. So all of those things are just uncommon for women. And I think we should be much, much more. I don't have a body of work to point out for that. I just am, you know, wherever I am, in sackcloth and ashes, and you know, my bin liner, which I wore at Halloween to piss off my children, but I thought it was a really great look. That is going to be who I am. And that has been the joy of this journey. And I learned that priorities, and it sounds really intelligent. I have to tell you, I scrabbled like crap, okay? There were just like years of pure scrabble and not knowing how to do any of this stuff. Like cook, clean. I had no idea how to clean. I had to buy a book that taught me how to clean, and then I cleaned, because I had never cleaned anything in my whole life. It was very interesting. The children learned with me. They still don't know how to clean. Priorities are internal and they are external. This is my take on life. And I think that when you are looking at what you're going to do, there are 3 things to me that matter the most. And this is something I do with coaching with senior women every single day now, because I like it and I love it and it's enjoyable to be able to impart stuff that has worked for you. The thing is that in terms of your internal priorities, so basically there are physical, for me, I break stuff down into basically body, mind, and spirit. That's how I run everything that I do. In terms of the body, I think that your ultimate priority, which is funny bearing in mind the conversations we've had today, has got to be your physical health. And it has to be. There is no way. If you give me anybody who's coming in, struggling with work, struggling with focus, struggling with overwhelm, can't get somewhere, can't raise enough money, can't do anything, and you let me have them and their body for a few weeks, and you can transform them into somebody with energy, clarity, focus, pizzazz, pep, everything, and therefore, the ability to move to another stage. Because it's really hard to grow when you're knackered. It's really hard to think when you're tired. And it's really hard to be compassionate when you're ill. When you're just dying, you're just like, sod off, I don't care. I just want to go back and dive into my glass of wine and talk to me another time, sort of thing. And a lot of us spend our lives like this. So your primary priority is always going to be your physical health. I ended up one day, there was this thing that somebody said was really good for energy, and so I ate it. I was really allergic to it. So I spent 3 days throwing up, and I was totally fine. I'm a single parent. I'm cool. I know exactly what I'm doing. I run a health business, did you know? I'll be fine. Day 3, somebody hauled me off and shoved me in emergency on a drip. And I'm such a needle phobe. Bearing in mind that there are needles in my business. Oh, the whole thing. I just wanted to cry. In fact, I think I was crying. And then I was sitting there, and somebody said, what's the biggest problem? Why are you crying? And I was like, I have to pick the kids up from school. There is nobody in my life. I don't know. I have to pick the kids up from school. And she looked at me and she said, well, you should take better care of yourself, shouldn't you? And I thought, good bloody point, frankly. And I thought, wow, so if something happens to me, it's either my ex-husband or my mother. And the kids were really little at that stage. I was like, we're not doing that. So I thought, and so I focused literally the next 5 to 7 years on creating systems of optimum, incredible energy to help people to feel and their very, very best. In our business, 98% of people that come in meet their physical goals. 98%, because we're so focused on that. The next step was, when you feel well, you're more able to look above and see more clearly, because your brain starts to function, right? And then you kind of can look around and you think, yeah, actually, no, I don't want to do that, because it's really hard to say no when you're tired. It's just, I'll just do it. But when you're not tired, you can say no. So the next step is something that I call success markers. In order to prioritize, when people talk about success, they're always talking about aim for something. And for me, it's very different. For me, success markers that I teach all of my clients is, your success marker is to look for the thing that will derail you. You're a woman. You're doing 27 million things already, okay? You don't need another bloody goal. Sometimes your goal is, can I just get through today? But what does work is to look at what derails you. So I have a client one of my coaching clients did an IPO last year, October. She's a CEO, she's one of 3 women CEOs in the city that runs a fintech. And we got her all the way through her IPO by looking at the thing that was going to derail her. Like, for example, the day she was due, and it was a successful IPO, which for last year was really tough. She was due in the stock exchange to do that whole va-va-voom thing you do in the stock exchange with a cake. Who knew? But I mean, as we worked it out with cake and all of this. But she had to be at her daughter's play in an hour's time after that. And she was just like, what am I going to do? And she's literally falling apart. And only another woman a mother is going to understand. You've got to be at the stock exchange. You're the only woman that has done an IPO. You're one of 3. But you have got to be at your daughter's play. So this is a success marker. Because when you see that thing coming at you, how are you going to fix it? Because it's going to come again and again. What is the priority here? And so with her, we knew obviously her priority was her daughter. And so we got her a motorbike. So it took her from the stock exchange, and she had her eyes closed the whole time. But hey, she got to both, and that was my job, and that was fine. We all kind of moved on. So I hope I'm explaining that well. Look for the things that will derail you. I know exactly what will stop me showing up at my best emotionally, and I fix that stuff way before it becomes a problem. But those are my success markers. They're my success markers. What are yours? Because if you don't manage those, you're going to have to manage them every day. Systemize managing them. Because that is what you should be doing instead of setting goals when actually you're tripping over, shit, I forgot to do the cooking because I have to do dinner tonight. Or whatever your version of that is. The third thing is that when you've done the physical side and you've done the emotional side, what then happens is that you get to the stage where you're much more in alignment, and because you are in alignment, the universe sort of starts to chuck you slightly in the back going, and what's next? And what's next? You talked about going national. It's that version of it. It says, now get bigger, get brighter, get faster. Come on, it's time to show. Because your charity will have raised 6 figures. Then it'll be like, so how do we get to the 7? How do we get, ooh, can I just change this? Because now I can change this. That's literally getting air under your wings. And then that becomes your push, your drive. Now at this stage, forgive me for all the scientifically non-spiritual minded people, my version of this, and not those two are necessarily go hand in hand, but my version of this is that we all have a unique fingerprint. We were born for a reason. It just gave me so much courage to understand that I wasn't a waste of space and time when I felt like I had failed at everything. I'd failed at marrying, I'd failed at keeping any of the Ferraris, I'd failed at having any money, I'd failed at not being a bankrupt, I'd failed at everything. I used to count the children. There were days I used to count them in the morning and count them. Because I was like, yeah, I've still got all the kids. We can't be doing badly, right? It was so bad that I would count the kids. And I didn't see the point of me then. So I used to always think, but there is a point to me. I have a unique fingerprint. There is a point to me. And I speak a lot to school kids about this because they see no value in who they are. And if you weren't born, each and every one of you, the universe would not have a key it needs to be who it's going to be. Each and every one of you. And that's what matters. And if that's who you are, how does that purpose fulfill itself? For some people it's nice and small, some people it's big and banging, and some people it's on bicycles, and some people it's brains. But each one of us has our own version. So when you get to that stage, you don't even have to prioritize. The universe turns up and kicks you swiftly up the arse and says you're going in this direction. And you start thinking,